Well, hello there. My name is HW, and thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. I wanted to show off all of the cool stuff in the collection because the collection's gotten quite large, and well, the Tone Junkie Vintage site is up and running, and there's a bunch of stuff sold out already. But there's new amps going up there all the time as I buy and sell stuff. And sometimes you see things in videos that you like, you might be able to pick it up on Tone Junkie Vintage, but a lot of the stuff in this room and a lot of the things that you see in videos that are probably the most prized, they're probably not going anywhere, at least for now. But you know, we'll see about that. This is where I spend like almost all of my time now. This is where I just sit in here and make profiles and edit video and do all sorts of stuff. I've really tried to like make it so I can do everything right here. I set up my Kemper and some pre's and EQs. This stuff's not done yet. I got a new EQ I'm trying out over here. We're gonna see if that can take the cake as the cool new JDK Audio dual channel EQ. That's a good one. But this is where I make some profiles. You know, this whole setup. Here's a Comet Aero 33. It's kind of like a train wreck dealio. But this is new. I'm not too familiar with it yet, but it's a very cool amp and all sorts of fun variations on a AC kind of T-Rec thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is where I spend most of my day. But I try to put everything in this one big room. So follow me over here to an area you're probably a little more familiar with, and that is the... Hey, you ever watch a Tone Junkie video? This is where they happen, and because of that, I ended up putting kind of a lot of my favorite amps, you know, over here, and some of the coolest stuff has found its way against this back wall. It looks cool, and so some of these items I wouldn't mind getting rid of, but then I gotta figure out like what I'm gonna put behind me. And, you know, it's really nice just sitting at my desk and flipping around and going, oh yeah, that's a good amp. That's a good guitar. That is some good stuff. So I want to show you some of my favorite pieces from here, amps, guitars, all this stuff. And I've even got some things that are on their way out today. And I've got some things coming in, which aren't here yet. But let's talk about it. Coming over here, this is sort of the Fender side. This is a 1965 or 66. I don't remember. I'd have to go date it. Blackface twin reverb with original wheels on it because these things are heavy as heck. It's got the Jensen Performance Series speakers in there. Those speakers were put in some twins, we believe, originally. We don't know why. Maybe the other speakers just didn't show up that day, but they had to get these out. Or if someone blew the original set of speakers in the mid to late 60s, they were putting in these higher wattage Jensens, kind of with bigger coils. And you got to have a 65 twin. It's the king of clean amps, isn't it? Or is it? I'm not sure. More on that later. But it's a cool amp. If you ask me, I'm going to take a Kemper out of the house. So these things are as much as the same year for like a Princeton. So why not go with the twin? Why not? I don't know. Right on top of that is a 19, this is a 69 or 70. And it's sort of a transition when they were switching. They went to the black Tolex, but they still had the white knobs. So that puts it at a certain date. But what they did with the amplifiers and what they did with these reverb units seems to be a little bit different depending on the year. But this is a Fender Reverb unit, and it's very cool. Check that guy out. Now, this thing broke on me almost as soon as I got it. But I always want to have like a full analog setup ready to go. And a lot of my amps just didn't have Verb. So I bought this so I could just plug in. Here's my 65, 66, 335, and then boom, analog reverb, tube reverb. Well, it's a spring reverb, but you know, it's tube-driven spring reverb going into a 57 Bandmaster. Come on, you know, I'm Mr. Digital, but that's fun. That's romantic. Up here is a tube screamer, and that's all I have to say about that. It's not vintage or anything. It's just green. This amp, let me show you a very special amp to me. This is a 1969 drip edge. See that drip? See, it's just dripping with silver tone. It's this drip edge Bandmaster Reverb TFL 5005D. Check out this text too. It's very 1970s. It's very, you know, in the 70s, they were like done being revolutionaries of the late 60s, and they just went to like very bland art, very uninspired everything. Think Love Boat. Like that was the big thing in the late in the 70s. They went to Love Boat. That was good television. Go watch Love Boat. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of things. Anyway, Fender decides, look at this beautiful styling of a Blackface amp. Let's completely switch it up. We're silver now. Silver's in. It looks cool. And let me tell you a story about this amp. Not this particular one, but this model was the very first, I literally I dropped an effects pedal on my foot. This is a side note, this is an original Marshall Bluesbreaker like John Mayer plays. This is the pedal that inspired all of the Bluesbreaker-esque overdrives. King of Tone, Morning Glory, this guy over here, the Protein Drive. Right? All inspired by these things. We'll get to that. But, you want to know the story on this guy? I bought this, and it's still awesome. It's not in the greatest shape. It's a little loose and stuff in the casing. But Marshall made this in the early 90s when blues was going through something like a resurgence. Robert Cray was big. SRV was big. Eric Johnson. And Marshall thought, oh man, pedals are getting big. People are into pedals now. Let's put out a pedal and we'll name it the Bluesbreaker because blues is back. So this pedal was not really designed to emulate. It's not an amp in a box pedal. People now misunderstand it because amp in a box pedals are a thing now. But the Bluesbreaker was really just supposed to give you a bluesy tone. It wasn't necessarily trying to be a JTM 45. It doesn't have the high end of a JTM 45. It doesn't even have that signature quality tone that Eric Johnson was using. Eric Johnson. HW, learn your stuff. Eric Clapton used in John Mayall's Bluesbreaker record, for which that Bluesbreaker amp is named. But they just used the name because they own the name. This pedal has not a ton of gain compared to a tube screamer even. So this version 1A, V1A, was made for only a short time, and then they immediately came out with 1B and added a bunch of gain. And later players realized that 1A, that limited production, was really the sweet one. It doesn't overly gain up your sound. It's really beautiful and musical. You got to turn the gain and the tone way up to kind of get that right tone. And really, John Mayer made these things worth a lot of money. Because once he found them, everyone's like, you want the continuum tone? You got to have a Dumble and this guy, which is so silly. Because if you're going to spend $100 grand on an amp, why would you put a little transistor in front of it? I digress. I'm a digital guy. What the heck do I know? Okay, back to this amp real quick. This thing is beautiful to me, even though it's one of the cheaper amps in the collection. But here's a story. This was the first amp that I found on local Craigslist in San Francisco area in California. And I drove out to Livermore. I drove from my house. I drove out to a town called Livermore. And there ain't nothing out there but a lot of cows. And now there's some wine. But all cows. And it smells like cows live out there. And I ran into this guy on Craigslist who had this amp listed, $500 for the head, and I wanted to get it. I was bitten by at the time I had like a Marshall 412 cab, and this was the first model amp that I bought that was a vintage amp, and I thought it was super cool. And when I got there, the guy had a huge Fender collection, a really big Fender collection, and he told me he had been collecting amps for forever, for years and years, and he had, like, when I think back, he had everything. He had every silver model from 68, 69. He had all the Blackface stuff. He had Showmans. He had dual Showmans. He had Bandmasters. He had it all. He didn't have a bunch of tweed stuff, but it was brown, black, silver face. And he ended up, he was just selling a couple of his amps. but his apartment was literally full. He had the cab, this big 212 cab. And same thing, drip edge, cosmetics and stuff. And it's just a 212, but they're huge. And he told me, I said, what are you going to do with the cab? And he said, well, you know, I guess they're just going to be separated. And my heart broke. That's when I knew I was a vintage nut, because my heart broke for the cab. This inanimate big object was just sad all of a sudden. It was going to lose its partner in crime, its soulmate, its source of audio and sound and soul. And I knew I had to do something. So I told the guy, okay, I'll take it, but I got to go to the bank and get a little more cash. Well, guess what? I didn't have any cash. This was all the cash I had in the world. I was driving a beat-up Toyota Avalon with a broken fender all the way out to Livermore, and I drive to the bank, and on the way to the bank, I called my dad, and I said, Dad, you're never going to believe this. The guy will throw in the cab for $200 more. And I can't separate them. It's a 1969, blah, 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 blah. My dad's like, all right, fine. You can borrow the money. So I paid my dad back eventually, but I got the thing, I brought it home. I even called my roommates on the way home and said, guys, we're going to have some company for a while. Someone's coming to live with us. I'm sure they thought I bought a dog. No, I bought a 69 Fender Fender Bandmaster Reverb TFL 5005D. And I used to take this cab everywhere. I would take it to church. I would drag it on stage down in the Mission District with no parking, and I'd bring it up, and I'd hobble it up. And I remember I had this worship leader at the time. His name's Phil. Love you, Phil. He said, hey, I'd be embarrassed if I had an amp that big and I was dragging it in here. And I said to Phil, well, I'd be embarrassed if I had bad tone. And take that, Phil. Love you. And so that was it. You know, tone's important, right? So, hey, you know, what do you do for tone? For me, I used to drag in a 412 and a 212. Now I have a much different outlook, but a young HW, I literally, is that how you say the word? Literally didn't know better. I like literally better. Literally, this is a 1964 Casino. If this guitar had two pickups and a Bixby, it'd be Lennon's guitar. It's a 64, and it would be worth a lot more money, but it's not. This is a single owner that came into my possession, and I love this thing because it's fully hollow, and it became my kick-around guitar around the house, and now it just looks cool in the background, and part of me wants to put it up here. Because I've been getting some comments lately that people tell me, hang the guitars in the background. And I'm like, all right. It was a strange thing to have a strong opinion about, but okay. And it's just lively. You know, fully hollow vintage guitars, it's just lively. It's lively, but not in tune. And but it's a great guitar. It's 64. And single pickup. Sounds pretty good. But I kind of like it unplugged more than I like it plugged in. It's not that special plugged in, to be honest with you. But hey, vintage gear always has its quirks, and sometimes things are amazing, sometimes things are pretty cool. And I pulled this guitar out and plugged it in, and it does a cool thing. Why not? This is the bridge to Goldie. This is a Showman, a 65 Showman, and you've never seen or heard this amp because it's heavy, and I haven't profiled it yet, but I plan to. What makes this amp special is this cabinet right here is a big 215 cabinet, and it's got JBLs in it. So those are the D, you know, whatever, 15F, I don't know. I'll look it up when I put out the pack, and I'm sure I'll talk about it in a bunch of videos. And look, I know what you guys think. You think that I'm going to look it up, I'm going to say it's the greatest pack in the world and stuff. And I notice in the comments, people now go, HW released a new pack. And of course, he said it's the greatest pack he's ever done, which I don't even say anymore, but somehow my excitement communicates, I guess, that every pack is the best pack. But it's not true. The best pack is the one I just released. Just kidding. No, the best pack is probably the purple. I don't know, maybe. Dual Showman, Showman. It's actually a dual Showman, but this is from a transition when they were putting the regular Showman plate on it. And the big 15s. Let me talk about the 15s. There's more mass in the speaker cone And so in the same way, you get some compression from a rectifier tube and you hit the note and it blooms. You get a very similar sensation with a big 15, these 15 JBLs. They're slower. So it's a weird thing, even compared to the 12-inch speakers in the Twin, and those circuits are very similar. You get this weird sort of slow, like the amp is trying to keep up with you, but it's got these big speakers that it's trying to get going, you know what I mean? So it very much feels like you've got an old Camaro or something, and you slam on the gas and you hear the engine roar, but it takes a minute to get down to the wheels, you know, and you feel the power of the engine first. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I don't know. You'll play the pack and it'll be cool. Check this out. Marshall. Look how beautiful this thing is. Look at this thing. Come on. Look at this. This is checkerboard kind of finish here. And come get a shot of the schematic thing. Not the schematic, the controls up here. So this is a unique amp. So it says JMP, right? But it's also in this year in the late 70s when they tried to, when they switched to these buttons, you know, these like switches, kind of computery switches. But this, to my knowledge, is a 76 or 77, and it's an amp they call the Artist 50. And so it's a cool amp. You'll notice that they first put these things on the Marshall 2204, but it's 2 channels, right? And so this thing, even though it says JMP, it's not really related to, like, it's not a JMP in the way the Purple's a JMP. You know, this is like a Plexi, and, you know, it's everything after the JTM. But that JMP moniker just went on everything until they switched to JCM. Even some of the models just kind of roll over. But this is most like Stooges Park. And so actually it's made same year as Stooges Park, I believe, or a couple years away. This might be a 67, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, it's got blackback, Marshall, greenback things, blackback, greenback. It's got blackback 25Ms. And same thing, 2-channel. And probably Marshall was literally at 1 o'clock, he was wiring up this amp, and at 2 o'clock he was wiring up the Parks. And these went to Rose Morris, who was controlling what he put out and where he could sell it. And then the Parks went to some other shop in I don't know, Ipswich or London, or I don't know, wherever those guys are. You know, I don't know which soccer team he was rooting for at the time. You know what I mean? Look at this. Will you look at this. This video just got good. You know, look at that thing. That's the most famous purple Plexi in the world. Because that's HW's purple Plexi. Someone told me, HW, what do you think that purple Plexi is worth these days? And I said, you know, if I had to think about it, $1 million. It's $1 million tone. That's why the pack, honestly, if you haven't noticed, the purple pack on the website is priced at $1 million, and then it's on sale for like the real price, and then there's like a purple code that brings it to the even realer price. Actually, it's on sale for $68 because it's 1968, so it's $1 million. Go look at the pack. Go look at the pack on the website. The purple Junkie purple Plexi camera profile pack is $1 million slashed, marked down to 68 because it's 1968, and then there's a code on there all the time. No one's ever paying that much. But this is it, man, and I tracked this thing down. Now look, anecdotally and with no evidence, whoops, I just dropped a DM2. Anecdotally and with no evidence, I could tell you what I have heard about this amp. And that is, it's, I can't confirm it was part of the Aspen Pittman collection. Very cool. There's some discrepancy with the wheels on the cab not being does it match 68? I don't know if the wheels were replaced or what, or maybe the cab is actually a slightly later year. The cab actually could be a 70 that was later paired with this 68 head, but the head is a 68. That I can confirm because I've had it looked at, and it has the real plexiglass on the front. Even I can tell that. So it's got to be 68. There's the first half of 69, but it's a 68. It's actually marked on the inside. This thing is, it's just so good, and it's just incredible. It really is just incredible. But I could tell you anecdotally, and not anecdotally, I could tell you with that after it was part of the Aspen Pittman collection, it went to a very wealthy guy who owned some car dealerships, and it sat in his place unplayed for years. And this thing's all original. It's beautiful. I was told, and I can never confirm this, there's no way to prove it, but some of the Aspen Pittman amps were on loan to the studio at the time Appetite for Destruction was recorded. I was told this was one of the Marshall heads that was over there. What does that mean? Did anyone use it? No idea. All I know is someone said it was in the building. Who cares? It's HW's Purple Plexi, and it's brilliant, it's beautiful, and look, why do I keep it around? Why do I have all these amps? I'm going to let you in on a secret. I don't update packs, really. I take an amp, I do my absolute best, and that's the pack. You know, that's how I hear it at the time. That's what I go with. I have different mics and different things as time goes on. I start to prefer different things. But this pack, I'm letting some time go by, and I'm letting my ears forget how this thing sounds. I haven't fired it on in a couple months. And that's intentional. I'm going to completely redo this pack. And by redo, I just mean I'm going to come at it at a very different way. I'm going to do some other unique stuff. I did some unique stuff with the way I profiled this, provided a lot of options. I then updated the pack with like 52 new ones. I'm going to come at this again. And I'm going to profile it differently and a little more like I did the 70s Marshall stuff. And I'm excited about that. So, just so you know, so far, there's one pack to me that there's one amp that's so storied, so special, it stands above the rest. And it needs to forever have updates. And to me, that's the Purple Plexi. So that's just where I'm at. Why am I doing that? Because look at it. It's the color of royalty. It's literally the color of royalty. Literally. This is the amp that started something. It's a 1957 Bandmaster. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. This is not a 1957 Bandmaster. I later, in examining the amp a little more closely, actually found some evidence that it's a 58 Bandmaster. So while some of the parts, I believe, date to 57, it actually was probably put together and finally shipped in 58. Here's what's so cool about this amp. Do you see this damage down here? And you can see this damage sort of works its way up. And that the amp in general is in better condition at the top of the Tolex than the bottom. You can see it over here too. I'm flipping this thing up. We've got some wear, but it's intact. But you see, this is water damage. And you can see it on this other side too. Look at this water damage here. So this is where it's completely worn through the Tolex here. But, and then you look at the back, and this almost looks like it was replaced at some point. I don't know, it looks worn, but it looks like they covered over this at some point with a fresher Tolex. So this panel doesn't look to have original Tolex, which is strange. Someone left this on a cement floor, is my theory, and it got some water damage, and the water crept up. It got some mold, and then someone realized what was going on and came in here and tried to clean it off. I think that makes it way cooler. I love the story of these amps. I love these amps. Original speakers, 3 original Jensens in the back. They're beautiful. 2 are, well, one's missing its dust cover. The other dust cover I have in the other room. Man. Tone cats will tell you the Bandmaster's got something special of all of them. But everything does a little thing that's special. Okay. Boom. It's a little heavy. We're going to have that there. See this guy back here? Let's jump to the wreck first. This is a train wreck. It's beautiful. It's a Liverpool with a liver bird. Don't call it a liver bird. Trust me. Let me give you some advice. If you make a YouTube video and you call this a liver bird, people will email you. And they will email you in thick British accents. And they will remind you that you do not speak the Queen's English because you think it's a liver bird. It's a liver bird. I asked repeatedly, wait a minute, is it Liverpool? No, it's Liverpool with a liver bird. Okay, I digress. He actually, Stu G and me had a good laugh because you know, I think I had said it wrong in front of him and he didn't correct me, you know, and then later I made these videos and I was like, why didn't Stu jump in and tell me? Anyway, okay. It's my fault. It's my fault. Right below that, an amp that many people have reached out to me about. This is a steel string singer. HW, is that a real steel string singer? Please give me your address so I can come rob you immediately. No, it's not a real steel string singer. If it was, it might be worth more than this house. But no. This was made by the gentleman who owns and runs Sebago Sound. And it was made for an owner of a real Dumble. And he got a circuit trace in Japan from Full Moon Music. They circuit traced number 2, Steel String Singer number 2, before John owned it apparently. It went through there, they circuit traced it. Later, Full Moon Music becomes a distributor of Sebago Sound amps. They form a relationship, and somebody one day says, hey, I got this circuit trace of this Dumble that came in here a long time ago. I think it's the one John Mayer owns today. And somebody said, well, that sounds like a good amp I should build, so I'm going to do that. And the owner, who this was made for, they asked for a couple of these. They were, let me just say this, they were going to make a couple more of these, and but they ended up not making a couple more of these. They ended up, I believe, only making this one or maybe this and one more, but they tried to copy all of the text and stuff to really make it a full, like, you know, this looks like a Dumble. Now, anybody who knows anything about actual Dumbles could look at this and go, that's not a real Dumble. It's not meant to fool anybody. It's meant to just be correct to the eye. You know, no one's trying to pass this off as a real Dumble. You could look at the back and you'd immediately see the components used are high quality, but they wouldn't match what Dumble was using, especially because he had transformers custom made for that amp. This amp has a I'm not going to say anything more than this. This amp has a transformer from the company that it is believed made the transformers for the actual Steel String Singers in a spec that we believe is just like the ones in Steel String Singers. But that company's lips are sealed as to if they actually made the Steel String Singer transformers or not. See, Dumble had them made somewhere. And what we know is he told the company, zip it. And that company, because they make transformers for everybody, their policy with all the manufacturers is, hey, listen, give us your spec, we'll make the transformers. We're not going to let any of our other customers say, give me his spec. No, we won't do that. Because we know as soon as we do that, we're not going to have any more business in this industry. So they're tight-lipped. So they can't tell you if they did or didn't do it for who. Now, somebody like Mercury Magnets might advertise, this is our customer, and so you know where those are coming from. They might even label them. But, you know, there's some who made what kind of going on. People keep offering to buy this amp from me. But look, I'm keeping some of these amps around because, you know, what if that quad cortex is good? What if that's good capture tech? Well, then I got to be ready to go. So all these might make its way to that platform if that turns out to be something that's worth writing home about. But we're going to see. HW is the ripe old age of 103. That's how smart I am. No, HW knows tone like a 103-year-old would. But I'm actually not 103. I'm actually 33. And this is a cool pedal to me for this reason. All these old timers that I meet, they always got these cool stories. Like, hey, I remember when I walked in and it was 1957 or was it 58? And I remember they had this tweed deluxe in the window and I saved up all my pennies and, you know, all this stuff, right? Those guys remembered when nobody wanted burst Les Pauls, when, you know, people said, Tele's, that's for country music, you know. I never had the experience because I was too young. I am too young to have walked in and bought some of this vintage stuff brand new. But I always loved, you know, the idea that I remember you could just go get those off the shelf, you know. And so this is one of the pedals that is not really vintage, but these old deluxe Memory Men in the big box like this were the last ones made with the original deluxe Memory Men chips. And so the chips, the Panasonic MN3005, 30005, I think it is. I could be wrong about the designation, but These are the same chips that were in Memory Men from the 80s or maybe the late 70s when they started production through the early mid 90s. Maybe it was into the late 90s. But this is the pedal that's on, you know, Streets Have No Name. This is the pedal Joshua Tree. This is the pedal that you know, Pink Floyd stuff. If that was used on Pink Floyd, I don't think it was. But you know what I'm saying. Anybody who used a Memory Man used this pedal. And this is from those this last era in the 90s, and I think they're the best ones, where they actually replaced the power cable with not the ones that were hardwired in, but the ones that you could connect to a pedal board, because that was becoming popular. So in my opinion, this is the best age of a deluxe Memory Man. And I remember being able to walk into Guitar Center in San Francisco, the old one, and you could buy this. You know, and I remember the day I heard they were getting rid of them. I went in and they were $350 each, and there were 3 of them left, and I knew they were never going to get any more. And I thought about buying them, and I kind of wish I had bought that because I looked at it and I think the return has been better than the S&P 500 on those deluxe Memory Men had I bought them. So I should have bought them. But to me, this is the closest thing I have to being able to buy. I went to the store and got, you know, a sought after, old school, not made, vintage piece of gear. And this was the end of its production life. You know, they changed the chips after that. But props to Electro Harmonix for stopping the manufacturing when the chips ran out, because it meant that whenever you see this shape, it's iconic and special. So I dig that. I dig that. I really do dig that. Down here, let me move this so you guys can see. This is just an old Tele. It's just one of the best sounding ones in the world. Don't worry about it. It's nothing special. No. Some people comment and stuff, and they're always like, "What is with that white Tele?" Well, I'll get into that probably in another video or something. But here's the AC10, and here is a cool old looking thing on top of it. But this is nothing special. This is just something they sell these days. This is this AC10 right next to my Profile of the World sign. This thing, this might be the cleanest AC10 in North America. And I'm not trying to brag. Yes, I am. This is probably the cleanest AC10 in North America. One thing I've noticed when I started buying gear, it's more difficult to find the mintier Vox stuff in the United States, because if you think about it, it was more expensive to get these amps here, and not as many were sold in the States as were sold over there in a lot of these years, especially the years before, maybe before they took off certain models. The AC10 was never really played by someone super famous. You know, the Doug and Pat show are kind of making it famous today. HW might be making it famous today. But, you know, the AC30 has always been the star of the show. So if you think about where are those amps that live under a bed that have just had one owner for all these years, it's in the UK. And so a lot of times I go online and I notice all the really cherry, minty, voxy stuff, always in the UK. And then a lot of the vintage stuff in the States has been, you know, for lack of a better term, rode hard and put away wet. I mean, it's, who says that, by the way? I don't even know what that means. What a strange saying. Anyway, it's, that might be like, I don't know, is that an off-color saying? I'm not sure. We'll find out. Leave it in the comments. This AC10 is, it's really beautiful. And one of the things I love about it, this egg, it's like a little egg, you know, button, foot switch. How ridiculous. This cable is just asking to be ripped out at an inopportune moment, but it's this little egg. I love that they thought of stuff like this. Like, this was design at the time, you know. It just it's brilliant. And then of course you got this beautiful Vox exterior. But if I turn it around, these things are brilliant speakers. Look at these little things. They're trying to be like Alnico Silvers. What? You're not Alnico Silvers. You're little ELAC 10-inch speakers. You're imposters. But it gives this amp a very unique sound, and I really enjoy this amp. And this is one that stuck with me. And you can date this amp by different things going on the back with the screws and stuff. But that's for the Vox geeks, you know, the real Vox geeks. Okay, jumping up here. Check it out. Bassman Bandmaster 212 cab. Speakers in here, not original. One of them broke, but it just became an amp stand. But it broke once it got here. I keep breaking stuff. Gotta stop that. This is a Bassman that came with this 212 cab, and I love Bassman. I've owned a couple Bassmen. This was the 67 bass, the amp for the 67 Bassman pack, which is free. And if you want a Bassman rock tone, I shot that pack warm with lots of mids. The 65 Bassman pack that you can buy is a little more representative of what a real Bassman sounds like in terms of you can make it bright, you can do this, you can do that, you can do all this stuff. But this Bassman right here, 67, I bought. It's a rocker. It's awesome, and it's in that free pack. Check that out, because I made those things rock. So that's a real rockin' Bassman pack. If you were wondering, this Bandmaster, did I profile this? I think I profiled it and like made it free. Did I call this the 67 band or 66 band? I think I did. I'm 90% positive I did. And I think it's free also. And I think I did it to complement this. I bought this for $400 from a dude in a parking lot of Guitar Center Nashville, like 2 weeks after the world shut down for, you know, the thing, which you can't say because the YouTube algorithm like penalizes you, or so I hear. I'm not into conspiracies. But anyway, bought it. I didn't get stolen vibes. I'm a musician and everything just closed in the world vibes. The dude had a really cool van. And by really cool, I mean it was mostly primer and rusted. And it had, I don't know, it was a cool van. He was a cool guy. And anyway, bought this thing. These two amps to me are like cousins, you know. This one's more rockin' and it's got the bass channel. This one has a very similar sound, but it's a smaller transformer, and I love the story that you get from the tone of amps when you got big and small transformers and stuff. This is a light. Okay. This is a 57 Tweed Deluxe. Look at that. It's the right weight too. If I'm gonna take this thing and I'm like, give me a guitar, you know? Look at me. I'm ready to go play a gig. Like, they got this right. Someone picked this up and was like, yeah, you can, that's a gig and amp. It's really, honestly, these are like the same weight. No, they're not. This one's heavier, but it's not, it's legit not hard to carry. Good job, Fender. Good job. In 1957, you got the weight right. Then you started making bigger amps, and that's why everyone needs to go digital. This thing is super cool. This is you know, what can you say? It's a 57 Deluxe, you know? Great speaker in there, you know, Jensen. This thing sounds like everything you would expect. 3 knobs, you know, tone and gain, on, off. You know, there's a mic channel. It's a little darker. Somebody at the time was like, you know what? What does a person need for a band? They need you know, they just need to plug in a mic and plug in a guitar, and there you go. You got yourself a band. This is another special amp, and this amp, I'm going to sit on this AC-10 for a minute. This amp right here, this belonged to my late grandfather, and I'm going to put this out eventually. It's not a sought-after amp. It's a Music Man, and these amps have preamps like Fenders that are tube, but they were one of the first amps to have like a solid state back end, and so kind of a weird hybrid thing. Leo Fender left Fender when he sold it. He later started G&L and Music Man, were 2 other companies he started in his lifetime. And for him, this was an evolution of amps. He was thinking, well, solid state technology exists. I can use tubes in the front end. Maybe he couldn't figure out how to use tubes in the front end and make a convincing. Maybe he wasn't sure how to use solid state in the front end and make a convincing guitar tone. But he figured out that he could replace the power section with a solid state power amp. And why I think that's really interesting, and this is something that I think he's not appreciated for enough. If you take this guitar right here, this guitar is most like the first electric guitar that Leo made. It's a Telecaster. Obviously, he made the what is it, Nocaster, the Snake Nocaster. But he designed a slab body, and he had this idea of this neck, and the frets they put on were like so frail, and they just didn't last very long. And he knew that the guitars would need maintenance, and that was one of the problems with arch tops. They were expensive, and they were expensive to maintain. So he thought, well, what if we just pop the neck off? That will help the guitar player stay on the road. That'll help keep maintenance low. And I think that one thing that gets forgotten with the Music Man series of amps is, as an amp owner, and an owner of a lot of amps, when a preamp tube goes out, regardless of the model or what, I can just pop in another 12AX7. I can pop in preamp tubes, but power tubes need to be removed. They need to be put in matched pairs. They weren't really using matched pairs at the time yet, but they needed to be put in, and it needed to be biased. And so he's actually taking away or fixing the part of the amp that is the hardest to maintain. So this amp is probably more roadworthy. Now, it's hard to repair solid state stuff. Not as many people know how to do it. So if it breaks, you might be up a creek. But this amp belonged to my late grandfather. It's one of the few things I got from him. I got a couple effects too. And he didn't have a ton of gear, but he played guitar for years. And when he passed, I was lucky enough that they were able to send this to me. And I'll profile this. We'll call it Pop's amp, because that's what I call him, Pop. And this switch also goes Pop. But he was a blues guy, and he played an old Jaguar, which is still floating around there in the family. And maybe it'll come land here one day, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm lucky to have this amp, and yes, it's crackling a little bit, so I've got to get a little fixed up. But we'll profile that. We'll call it Pop's amp, and that will be cool. That's everything on the back wall, but it ain't everything I got. Check it out. Come over here. Come over here. Okay, over here, there's a little bit of some of these amps are kind of like in transition. Are they going in? Are they going out? I don't know. But there's some stuff here I'm keeping. Some stuff here that's probably going out the door. Here's a 66 Vox, 66 AC30. I love this amp. This is going nowhere. Beautiful amplifier, because the best thing about it, built by JMI, my gosh, it's heavy. Look at that thing. Look at this back here. Look, Vox still with the egg timer, the egg-shaped thing here, the foot switch. Love it. And look at these silver bells. This is the bell of the ball for sure. The silver bell of the ball. Come on, that's tone in there. Whoops, this is coming out. All right, we'll tighten that up. This thing is brilliant. It's beautiful, and those silver bells have made their way into a lot of profile packs. But let me pull this out of the way so you can see the rock monster that is. Look at this Marshall cab. This is a 1969 Marshall cabinet with greenback T1221 greenbacks. Come on, come on, Uncle Willie, that's some good tone. Super bass. 63 super bass. Sorry, 73 super bass. There's no 63 super bass. 73 super bass, 71 super lead. In a video, I called these aluminum panel Plexis. And boy, did I get someone upset by calling these a Plexi. Someone even said, don't fall for this. Don't fall for this. Listen, that's a 68 over there. Okay, I got a purple 68 I showed you. I know what a Plexi sounds like. In 69, halfway through the year, they switched to aluminum. The 69 to 70 circuit, I believe, is constant. 71, there's a circuit change. That's this amp. If you want to call that not a Plexi, that's fine with me, but I'm going to use the term aluminum panel Plexi because I'm referring to the Plexi sound. A lot of people just call these Plexis. You can call them super, super lead, super bass, whatever. You know what I'm referring to. They're 4-input Marshalls, and they're beautiful. Super bass. This one had a replacement transformer because it broke in shipping, but then it turns out I was sold this amp believing that it was the original transformer. It turned out that it had been replaced, but it looks like it had been replaced maybe sometime a long time ago. Maybe a couple years, maybe 10 years after the amp was made. So maybe in the 80s they got a replacement transformer. But anyway, stuff like that happens. This is a Trainer YBA1. You know about these amps? Sometimes they're called the poor man's bassman, which is kind of weird because they're not that much cheaper than bassmans anymore. But I think maybe they used to be. But they're cool. It's got a big 215 cab with it. I'm going to profile this as well. But the cab's making some weird sounds. So I got to get them to fix this. Or I just won't use this cab in the profiles. You know, I'll go with one of these cabinets or something. But I kind of want to do the 215 thing. But this cab you see in a lot of profile packs that I put out. This is one of my main cabinets. The other one's an orange in the other room. I'm not going to pull that out. That thing has no casters, and it's literally a million pounds. Literally. This is a Pulsar. It's not that old, but I just think it looks really cool. It's one of my favorite looking pedals. Look, back to the 70s, you see? Remember the Bandmaster? Silver with this blue font. What was going on? This was a thing? You know, somebody, I don't know, they just did stuff like that. They liked blue and silver, and it was cool. This is, you guys know what this is. It's the clone of the 183. A couple clones of the 183 out there, but that's the 183 amp for that pack. Flipping over here, get a little shot of this guy. That's a deluxe. That's a sound of classic rock right there. A lot of people don't realize. They think it's a Marshall stack on that old record. Sometimes it's one of these. Sometimes it's one of these. And last but not least, this amp's going out the door today. Today, it's going out the door. It found a new home. HW, you're not hanging on to it? Not this one. We can't keep them all, you know? It sold before I even got it up there on Tone Junkie Vintage. So what can I do about that? You know what I'm saying? Let's flip this around. What are those? 10-inch Marshalls. Those are 10-inch Celestion speakers. Look what Marshall was doing. They were like, hey, Vox, you got the egg? We got a wedge of cheese. Look at that. Little cheese wedge. It's cheddar. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, listen. This amp is very cool. In my opinion, if you want a vintage amplifier and you're a Sunday morning guy, check out one of these amps. It's a 210. They're called Marshall Popular 30 or 1930, just called Marshall Popular, designation 1930, 1930. A lot of people get confused. Marshall used designations on all the amps, so for different, and sometimes they start with 19, and you might confuse that to be the year. This is not a 1930s amplifier, no way. It's a 1969, that is designation 1930 from Marshall. And honestly, put this in stereo with an AC-15, put this in stereo with an AC-10, put this in stereo with an AC-30 even, with a ProSonic, with a whatever, and tell me this thing isn't one of the best. This thing could be a killer boutique amp if it had the name Jackson on it or something. But because it's Marshall, people don't always, they don't always take it seriously. So those are the amps. Well, thank you so much. My name has been HW. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the collection. And like I said, you got to get on Tone Junkie Vintage and check this stuff out, because I got some stuff coming up for sale all the time. Some stuff I'm hanging on to, but I do need to clear some stuff out, so please go buy it. No, I'm kidding. No, actually, there's cool stuff, and a lot of times I put it for cheaper on the website than they're going for on Reverb. That's the truth, because I don't have to pay the fees, and I rather just, it goes to a good home, yada, yada, yada. I got some cool guitars. Check it out in the next video. HW. Thanks so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. I love you. Are you this far in this video? Thank you. What are you doing? Anything? Is it the weekend? Is it the evening? Are you just listening to this on the podcast? That could be. I'm just going to rip this audio, put it right on the podcast. But if you're at this point, you're a super fan. I love you. I thank you. HW. Oh!